Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into when your teen pushes every button. And before we get into that, Selina has this week's parenting moment.
Yeah, so our kids are involved in the county fair. I guess it's giving me lots of parenting moments because I feel like I keep sharing things from what we've been learning from 4-H and fair. So yay for that. I guess that just gives us more opportunities to learn. So our daughter participated in the horse show, and there was a moment that was really hard and things didn't go how she wanted. And I went in to talk to her, help her feel better. And she literally pushed me away, physically pushed me away when I was trying to hug her. And that really hurt. I'll be honest, that really hurt. But I had to step back and I was like, this is not about you. This is about her and what she's experiencing and what she needs. And I think she needs a hug. I think she needs me to make her feel better by saying all these things. But what she needed was some time and some space to process it herself. And honestly, I think that she didn't want me to hug her because she knew she would break down and it would be harder. And so when I realized that, I realized it's not about me. And my role here is just to support her and support what she needs. And that means not giving her a hug or saying what I think she needs to hear at that time. So it just, I saw this funny meme that I sent her and it was like, oh, I'm sorry. It was just my nerves talking when I snapped at you when you asked if I wanted some water. It's like, that's what it is. The nerves and the emotions and all the feelings and all that goes with it. So just taking the time to realize it's not about you and not taking it personal, because I could have got upset at her and yelled at her or told her or cried or all that, but just step back. This isn't about me. This isn't for me, even though it was hurtful, and just let her process and give her what she needs.
That actually fits in perfectly with today's topic of, when teens push your buttons. And sometimes they do things that are hurtful. Sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's not. And I really love what you said about don't internalize it. It's not about you. And it's such a human thing. And it's especially such a parent thing to do, to well, what did I do wrong? Asking what I did wrong in those instances. And I'm not saying that, you shouldn't try to do better as a parent, but oftentimes in your situation, asking what did I do wrong is making it about you. And what you did is you said, this isn't about me. So you definitely learned from it, but it was more about what your kiddo needed in the moment. And you know what? It's hard when your kid doesn't need mom. That's really hard. That can be really tough.
Well, maybe it was more hurtful because she's the one that always needs me. And so when she did that, it hurt more. But I fully plan to have an opportunity at the right moment to express to her how it hurt me. But that wasn't the moment to express that. I do plan to have a conversation with her to help her understand what she needs and what I need and how that situation went about.
Which I also love, setting that boundary and helping teens understand empathy, because, they're certainly better at it than 5-year-olds in dealing with empathy. But, I think it's still a struggle sometimes because they do get so stuck in their own world. And so I love this idea that you're going to take the time and just tell her, hey, I'm a human being and I still have feelings and my feelings matter. So I feel like that's a really healthy boundary and a great way to model emotional intelligence and just, a good modeling piece for teens as well.
Well, and I'm hoping that she's going to be able to tell me what she needs in those moments so that I'm not trying to do what I think she needs, right? And that she can express to me oh, no, that's really uncomfortable when you try to hug me when I'm upset. Then I know, I'm not going to do that because that's just going to upset her and going to hurt me. So then we can have that conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So Why do teens know exactly how to push our buttons? They are really good at it.
Aren't they? I was thinking about this and thinking about some of the times I pushed my parents' buttons growing up
Uh-huh.
when I was a teen. And sometimes it was really on purpose. And I was like,
Yep.
yeah, watch this, see what I'll get away with. Other times I was completely unaware. You get those eye rolls or
Mhm.
the whatever, or, just plain ignoring you. And a big one for me is like door slamming. Gosh, if you
Mm.
slam one of my doors, I don't care if it's a cabinet door or bedroom door, that one gets me going pretty quick. That and then arguing about everything. It's always an argument, right? Like,
Yes.
oh, we can't just have a conversation. Like I asked you a question and now you want to argue with me about it. And
Or
there's some
bringing
tough
up
ones there.
Yeah, or bringing up the same argument again and again and again, and you're like, I cannot have this argument with you again. Like we've had this, we've done this, yes. And they pick their moments too. They seem to pick the moment perfectly that it's like it's almost like they know, and I think they can. Well, I think kids in general can sense when their parents are stressed. And so they pick that right moment. And really what it is they're probably feeding off of your stress. So that's what's causing their behavior or what's causing their reaction is because they sense that you're stressed. Okay, so when our teens push our buttons, I think our main goal is to work on regulation, right? So have you ever had a moment where your teenager said something and you immediately felt your blood pressure rise? They say something and you're just, it's almost like a visceral response you can't control. And you just want to ground them for eternity or just yell at them because they deserve it.
I think every parent's experienced that. So I guess
Uh-huh.
I would ask our listeners, like, do you recognize that, right? Do you feel that blood pressure boil before you respond? There's a very split second moment, right, of
Mm-hmm.
that blood to start boiling and your response typically. And so it's in that split second moment that we can, and we're going to get more into that today, but it's in that split second moment that we can look at it and go, hey, wait a minute, how do I want to respond here? How do I want to show up? And yeah, I'm fuming and I'm ready to blow my lid because my blood pressure is just through the roof all of a sudden because you said
Mm-hmm.
something rude or disrespectful or snark or whatever it might be. And so that's what I think I would want our listeners to start paying attention to if this is a struggle in your home. Like what's happening to your body, your physical body when they're doing something. And for some, yeah, it's blood boiling or high blood pressure. Some it might just be instant anger. I don't know. There's a lot of them, but pay attention to what that is.
So, and also recognizing that sometimes it's not entirely about what your teen did or said. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like it's often tied to something deeper that you haven't just recognized. So, you're feeling like your teen doesn't respect you or like they're ignoring you. You feel powerless. Maybe you are failing as a parent, or maybe you're just plain exhausted, right? And then so often, I think our reactions are tied to our own experiences growing up. I don't think we realize how much our parents' parenting affects the way we parent. And that's for both good and bad. And all of the parents have done it and all of the humans experience it. The way we lived our lives as kids, it affects us as adults.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Liz, with this idea of understanding that what's going on with us is really kind of just a reaction to what we're thinking and feeling about what they've said or what they've done. And this really all of a sudden then becomes about us and not about them. And so
Mm-hmm.
understanding these emotions and these feelings and experiences that we're having will help us to better kind of control or manage our own emotions and show up in a way for our children and for ourselves, our families, that we could be more proud of instead of just reacting to whatever the situation might be.
Yeah, definitely. If you're struggling with this or things are frustrating you or you're automatically irritated, first thing I would do is look at your thought. What are you thinking
Mm-hmm.
when they say that? Because that's creating your feeling. So if you want to change how you're reacting or you want to change what's happening, then you're going to look at what you're thinking about what they said or did.
Well, and understanding like that in the moment, it doesn't feel like there's any time. We want to say that it was instant, right? Like, my kid rolled their eyes at me and instantly I snapped and I did whatever. Really, it wasn't instant. There's that split second thing that I was just talking about a moment ago that says, hey, you know what's happening here? And what we're talking about here is not like excusing disrespectful behavior or anything of that nature, right? We still want to handle that. But what we're talking about here is learning to manage our own emotions as parents, learning to kind of control what's happening with us and make sure that we stay on task. We build the relationship with the child and we respond in a way that we can be happy and that creates connection with our children. Respond in a way that we're happy with the way we responded, not necessarily we're happy about the situation.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we will be right back.
Are you pregnant or recently postpartum and struggling with substance use? Or do you know someone who is?
You're not alone. I'm Amani Wilson.
And I'm Dr. Farzad Kamyar. On Empowered Voices, Recovery to Resiliency, we bring to light the challenges and triumphs of families navigating substance use during and after pregnancy.
Through compelling stories, expert insights, and actionable guidance, we aim to empower listeners with understanding, compassion, and tools for support.
Join our community where compassion replaces judgment.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts because every mother deserves support and the chance to thrive.
Right. I mean, because it's part of the learning and growing process. Just like you are going to make mistakes, teens are going to make mistakes, and you reacting in a way that you're unhappy with doesn't negate their poor behavior, right? So it's a great learning and growing opportunity for both of you. So maybe you did flip your lid, you didn't handle it well. It's a great time to come back and say, I didn't like the way I handled that. I made a mistake. And there's still going to be a consequence because your behavior also wasn't acceptable. So it's just a really great learning opportunity, I think, for both parties.
It really is. And again, we talk about this, it seems like almost every week on the podcast, but we're modeling how to manage big emotions and what's happening. And that's probably the greater lesson here than anything is that modeling emotional regulation and healthy conflict in relationships.
Yeah, because conflict is inevitable. Everybody is going to experience conflict in a relationship. And, I always try to look at conflict as opportunities for growth rather than conflict as a problem. This is an opportunity for me to grow closer to that person and for me to learn more. Okay, so I want to briefly explain what a trigger is. So it is something that activates a strong emotional response, sometimes much stronger than the situation seems to warrant. And we've all been there. We've all done that. We've all experienced that. Your teen rolls their eyes, and in that moment, you're like, don't you dare disrespect me that way. And then you look back and you're like, why was this such a big deal? Something else was triggered, right? So you were triggered by something that probably wasn't related to the eye roll at all. It was probably related to something deeper. So, your goal as a parent is going to be to try to dig deeper and figure out what that was, where that happened, what is going on in that moment. Okay, so a really good way to do that is to ask what behavior from your teen consistently gets the biggest reaction from you. So why does that work? Why is that a really good place to start?
Well, because we're looking at like what's happening with us, right? Often our response to what they're doing when it's maybe some of this disrespectful or we consider it disrespectful behavior is more about how we're feeling about the situation. Kind of like what Selina was talking about. What are your thoughts about it? And what does this behavior mean to me? For example, the eye roll, right? Like your teen rolls their eyes and, they don't respect me is the way I feel as a parent. All of a sudden now I'm angry and I'm lecturing and I'm yelling. And what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to slow down that process a little bit so that we don't just, bam, we responded and now we're angry and yelling and screaming because they rolled their eyes, when in reality, we want to do something a little bit more thoughtful. What's going on for them that is causing that eye roll? Like what's happening? Not that it's okay that they're rolling their eyes, but really it's not hurting you. It's just their response to what's going on. So we can have a greater conversation. We can say, well, why am I as a parent becoming so reactive to that behavior? What is happening for me, and how do I want to show up and manage that with them? What questions can I ask them to better understand? Like, what's the purpose of this eye roll? Or clearly that statement bothered you. Do you want to tell me more about what's going on there? That's a connective question, right? That maybe they go, I didn't really mean to roll my eyes at you. I just hate doing the dishes and I'm frustrated and I've got other things I was hoping to do. Oh, okay. I understand that. So see, it wasn't about me as the parent. It was about them and what they're experiencing, and really had less to do with me as the parent than it did to do with the whole situation of, hey, I got to do the dishes and I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, rolling their eyes or not wanting to do it, sometimes it can feel frustrating because maybe parents might interpret that as they're just lazy. They just don't want to do anything. Right. And I feel like it's normal to internalize it, because you're probably thinking, why is this kid so lazy? I do everything else around here. They can't just help out and do the dishes. So, that's what we're trying to avoid, is just internalizing our teens' behavior.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get into the trigger, reaction, consequence cycle. So break that down for me and explain what it is.
When we look at this, a lot of times when we have these triggers as parents, we end up in this cycle. And that's what you're referring to here, Liz, is there's some sort of trigger. Something happens, the kid says whatever, or rolls their eyes, or whatever that response is, right? And then we interpret it as something that is disrespectful or rude or uncaring or whatever. We have this emotion attached to it. Now we're angry, we're frustrated, we're hurt, and we start yelling. So we have this reaction of yelling and lecturing and threatening, and maybe we become sarcastic. Maybe we impose some sort of consequence because they did it. And then the teen becomes defensive. They shut down, they withdraw. Then we kind of just start all over again, right? The cycle repeats. Now they're going to do something else. We're going to have some sort of a trigger, and we're going to interpret it in a way that we assign some sort of meaning to it for us. So we experience another emotion, and then we react and do something else. And then there's a consequence that comes, and we're just in this ugly cycle that really isn't beneficial at all. And so at this point, we want to stop the cycle, and we want to pause. And maybe we can get into that for a moment and what that looks like. But we want to pause, because when we pause, we give ourselves time to think, and we give ourselves time to challenge what we're feeling and the meaning that we're assigning to it. For example, the eye roll, if we assign disrespect to that and we stop for a moment, we go, wait a minute, what's actually happening here? And I'm guilty of this as a parent. I had it happen the other day with my son, where I asked him to do something, and he was really frustrated and just kind of giving me crap. And I was like, whoa, hey man, what's happening? Why are you so upset about this? And he was able to explain to me that he had some other things going on that he was trying to do, and that this was interrupting, and he was frustrated by it. Oh, I get that. And so we were able to work it out and find a solution for him so that he can get things done he needed to, and so that he could accomplish what he was asked to do and fulfill his responsibilities in the house. So, when we look at the pausing, this just gives us time to go, okay, what's going on? And what we're looking for is the physiological response, right? Like, what's happening? Are you having tightness in your shoulders? Is your heart rate increasing? Are you raising your voice? Are you feeling the need to win? That's a big one, right? Like, ooh, I'm going to win this battle, right? Are we repeating ourselves, constantly saying the same thing over and over? How many times do I have to say this to you? And are we wanting to punish immediately? So if that's what's happening, we want to take a 10-second reset before we respond. We're going to stop, we're going to breathe, we're going to notice, and we're going to choose. And we're going to ask ourselves things like, what does my teen need from me right now? And what response will actually help this situation? Because most likely our first response isn't going to be helpful. It's actually going to put us right back in that cycle we were talking about a moment ago, where we're just going to keep going through it and it's not going to help. So, maybe an example of that is your kid says, oh, whatever, you're so annoying, right? And your immediate response is going to be, what? pardon me,
Say that again.
you don't get to talk to me that way. An alternate here can be something like, oh man, I can see you're upset, you're frustrated. I'm willing to talk when we can both be respectful. And I think some parents see this as maybe weakness. And I would argue that it is not, because, I have to respond. I can't tolerate people treating me that way in my own house. And that's just garbage. So it's not weakness. That's strength. That's showing emotional strength and self-control. It shows leadership. Like we're like, hey, we're not excusing the behavior and the disrespectful tone there. We're just like, oh, wait a minute. What we're showing our kids, number one, is in that type of situation that, whoa, mom and dad or whoever recognizes that things are elevated. And I responded in a way that they didn't appreciate. It gives the parent that time to pause and reset and think about how they're going to respond, right? So this is kind of teaching that idea and principle of emotional regulation.
And yeah, I feel like that can be a struggle. So I'm thinking about my own interactions, with my kiddos. And when they say something or do something disrespectful, I'm usually pretty good at keeping a cool head, but my immediate response is, it's not okay to talk to me that way. And what I'm doing is I am doing correction before the connection.
Yep.
And so what our goal here is to flip that, right? So you want to connect before you correct. But to Jeremiah's point, the correction is still important. So inserting that connection doesn't mean taking out the correction, because teens need boundaries, and it is your job to teach them and to help establish that. So, again, our goal is to show our teens that I see you as a human being. I see that you have feelings and emotions, that you don't always get it right, but I love you regardless. Your behavior doesn't mean I love you any less. That doesn't change based on your behavior, is really the ultimate message that we're sending.
No, you're absolutely right. And, I know we've kind of been talking about some examples here where it's not necessarily that a teen is trying to be disrespectful. It's not necessarily that there's something going on, but what if they are?
Yeah.
And we do have to make this correction, right? What if your teen is actually being disrespectful? Again, though, the principle doesn't change here. We still want to respond calmly. And it doesn't mean that we're just allowing them to do whatever they want. But if we can be calm and firm, we can be loving and maintain boundaries. And we can also be understanding and clear. So this might look something like, your kid says, "Shut up, you don't know anything." And I know what my normal response would be, again, we're going to respond and we're going to go right back into that cycle. But instead of doing that, here's an opportunity for us to say something like, I'm willing and happy to hear about what is making you so upset, but I'm not willing to be spoken to that way. We can continue this conversation when we're both calmer. And what we're communicating here is that, hey, your feelings are allowed. Feelings should always be allowed, right? Like, of course you're upset. Something has made you upset, but disrespectful behavior isn't. And so then they can calm and they can say, I was just really upset because, I feel like you're not listening to what I have to say. And I happen to know something about this topic that maybe you're not aware of as a parent. And when we're calmer, we can have a more open mind that says, yeah, my kid might actually know something more about this topic than I know. And so maybe I could listen to them and I can learn something from them. Another example might be a teen saying, "I'm not going to do that." And our response could be something like, "You know what? We can talk about whether or not expectations here need to change, but refusing isn't going to be the solution. So let's sit down and have a conversation and figure out what's getting in the way for you here." And then we can have a more calm and healthy conversation about what's happening, and we can have a better understanding and see maybe the expectation does need to change. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they need a new perspective, but they're not going to get that perspective if we haven't created that connection first.
Yes.
We haven't modeled the healthy behavior that slows it down, that allows us to be calm yet firm, and still maintain those boundaries and be very clear about what our expectations are as a parent.
Yeah. So there's another argument that teens do that I'd really like to touch on. The everyone else can argument. I hear that I'm the only one in my whole grade that doesn't get to XYZ, or that has to XYZ, right? Pick anything. And it's our immediate response to say, well, you're not everybody else, or you don't live in this household, right? And this is the way we do things. That doesn't foster connection, right? And again, it's not that we're being permissive parents by just saying, okay, well, I guess if everybody else gets to do it, that's obviously not a good idea. But if you just come across as authoritarian and just laying down the law, that's the opposite of connection. So how do we want to respond here? Give me a better response for this.
Isn't that funny? Because if you ask other moms,
Uh-huh.
they also have the same rules. So I'm always like, can you tell me who all these other kids are? Because I've yet to find them.
Right.
But I think it's more just not taking those words. They don't know how to express it. They feel left out. They feel like they're out of the tribe. They feel like they're outcast, not accepted, and they're looking for a sense of belonging at this point. And so that threatens their sense of belonging when they feel like they're the only one. So I would be curious, and I would maybe give your kid credit. Like, man, they're so smart. They're so creative in they're trying to get what they want. Good job. A for effort on that. So yeah, just trying to maybe more understand where they're coming from, what's bothering them, and what's those insecurities that are fueling them wanting to have the said thing.
And I think this one can be a really big one. This whole everybody else is doing it, or everybody else has it, or whatever. Like if we think about cell phones, for example, right? Like your kid might be mostly right if they say, well, maybe they're in the 5th or 6th grade and they're like, but all of my friends have a phone. Why can't I have a phone? Well, maybe not all of them, but I'm betting a pretty big chunk of them. And yes, we can definitely find parents who are like, yeah, no way, you're not having a phone. That's not going to be hard to do. But for the child, it may feel that way. It might be a very real situation and struggle for them. And we have to take a moment and start to recognize, like, where could this be challenging for my child? And so, if literally it feels like I'm not involved in the group text message. I have this group of friends. There's 5 of us, and I'm the only one who doesn't have a phone. And they talk about things, and I feel so left out. Well, yeah, they probably do. And so, if we respond, of course, we want to be cautious about this disrespectful behavior, right? So I understand that you might not agree with my decision, and you can disagree with me, and we can still talk respectfully. And so now we can have a respectful conversation about it and understand where they're coming from, and see if there's something that we can do to maybe alleviate some of the struggles and things that they're experiencing, and still maintain the same boundary. It doesn't mean we have to change the boundary. We might just be able to help them through that difficult thing. Like Selina was saying, like trying to come from a place of understanding of what they might be experiencing, what they might be doing.
Well, and that's a great opportunity for connection, right? If we're automatically saying like, well, not in this house, or find me some kid who doesn't, and we respond that way, that's very dismissive of what they're experiencing and what they're feeling. But if we had a response of like, man, that must be really hard. Yeah, you're the only one that doesn't have a cell phone. What does that make you feel? Or how does that bother you? Or how are you left out? And just talking and getting to know and understand what they're experiencing is going to make their feelings feel valid and heard instead of just dismissive.
And sometimes just giving them permission to not like the rule. I think that can be empowering for them sometimes to say, I get it. You don't like it, and it's okay. You don't have to like it, and you can be mad. You can be mad at me, and you can be mad at this rule, and you cannot like this rule, but it's not going to change, right? And that doesn't mean you can't still have a discussion about it, or, let them ask questions. And usually their questions are just a way of trying to refute your point of, well, they're usually just trying to put up a defense. But sometimes I feel like that's a good part of the process. That's a healthy part of the process of, let them make their defense, or let them try to refute your reasons, because I think teens respond better. Well, human beings in general respond better when they know why. Even as adults, when somebody just comes down with a rule or a law or something like that, and we're like, well, this is stupid. I don't like this. Why do I have to do this? Adults feel the same way, but then maybe you hear the reasoning behind it. You're like, okay, I get it. That makes sense. teens have those same feelings.
They do. And, being aware of that and acknowledging what they're experiencing can be quite powerful. And I know we've given a lot of examples today about different scenarios and things like that. But I think when we get back to it and we look at what's going on here, we want to understand, like, as parents, what's causing us to be triggered in these moments? What is happening for us that really is causing us to have this maybe heightened response to what's going on? Sometimes there's situations where a teen doesn't listen and we feel disrespected as a parent. They make a poor choice and we feel like that's a reflection of our parenting. So we feel like, hey, I failed as a parent. They're pulling away and we start to think like, oh man, my kid doesn't need me anymore. They challenge a belief and we might feel like we're losing our ability to influence what's happening in their lives. When they fail at something, we tend to want to fix it so they don't get hurt, right? And so instead of just asking like, why is my teen doing this? We want to ask ourselves, like, why is this particular behavior so difficult for me? And that can change the entire interaction, right? And so we can use something like there's one called pause, right? That we can use, and it's an acronym, right? The P stands for pay attention. So we're going to notice what we're feeling in our bodies and what's happening with us, like the elevated heart rate, whatever's happening in our bodies, the tense muscles, those kinds of things. A stands for ask what you're telling yourself. What meaning am I giving to this response? And what is that making me feel and think? U is understand the bigger picture. So what might my teen be experiencing that's causing them to respond this way? S stands for select your response. So what response fits my values as a parent and will create connection with my child? And then E is engaged. So now we're going to address the behavior calmly and clearly. But if we've gone through this process, this pause process, we've given ourselves enough time to respond in a way that's healthy and it's clear and it's calm. We're going to create connection through that process and be able to have a healthier conversation. We're teaching emotional regulation. We're regulating ourselves on our own.
And we are correcting the behavior because that is important. I mean, it's part of being a parent is when your teen is being a jerk, they need to understand they can't just be a jerk because they had X, Y, Z going on. You like the correction piece still really is important, but how you go about correcting is going to make a huge difference in your relationships. Focusing on the connection is going to help reinforce the correction.
Well, yeah, you're going to do a better job correcting it, right? And for us parents, like I recognize, I know often in this podcast, we make it seem like these things are so simple to do and change, and they're not. We understand that. And I hope our listeners don't ever feel like we think it's just really simple because we get it. It's not. And in the moment is the hardest time, right? When we're already feeling that and it happens so quickly, it's difficult for us to actually pause in that moment. So there's a great task that we could do as parents that will help us start to understand ourselves a little bit better, where we can kind of practice this. And so you can write down on a piece of paper things that your teen does that are triggers for you that cause you to do something or respond in a way that maybe you wish you didn't. And then we can write down, like, what are you interpreting that behavior as? Write down what you're feeling about it. What are the feelings associated with that? And then write down how you respond. How do you normally respond? And here's the big piece is next time I want to try XYZ. So we're going to write down some ideas of things that we could try instead. And I will caution you because you're going to try it and it's going to fail and you're just going to flip your lid and it's going to go crazy. But this is going to take practice. Again, this is hard. It's not something that you're going to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, I got it now. And we're going to go do it perfectly. No, that's not going to happen. Be patient with yourself, just like we want to be patient with our children, and go through this process of writing it down and kind of sorting it through before it happens the next time. And then practice, because your kids are going to give you opportunity to practice.
Yeah, we say this all the time. Parenting is not about perfection. It's about progress. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to do a little bit better each day so that we can raise resilient teens that hopefully grow up into people we actually want to be around when they're adults. I personally love having a good relationship. I have a friendship with my parents as an adult, and I hope someday to have that with my kids. Right now I can't because I have to be their parent and they don't like some of the things that I do. Okay. So next week we are off. The following week we will be back with helping teens leave unhealthy friendships, and we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.